Hey, free agents, Vikings, they got your money, but not a lot of it because of the 2020 cap situation. Not quite as catchy, but ODB, RIP. There you go. Vikings do have a number of key players up for free agency this offseason and in a tight salary cap situation as well. While it looks like Anthony Harris will likely be allowed to leave, which is unfortunate. That then makes numero uno target one cornerback Mackenzie Alexander. Let's talk about why today. So, Mac. Love Mac. Love me some Mac. 26 years old, 5'10", 192 pounds, former second-round pick, number 54 overall in 2016, coming out of Clemson. Now, here's the thing, too. Vikings, generally when they take cornerbacks, they're seen as quite a bit of value. Like Xavier when he fell in 2013. You look at Mike Hughes dropping all the way at 30 in 2018, as well as Mackenzie Alexander, second round 2016. A lot of the draft prognosticators thought that Mackenzie Alexander would be a back-end first-round pick. So the Vikings just jumping all over that value. It's great. Basically had a redshirt year in 2016, only played 67 defensive snaps, eventually worked his way up into the slot cornerback rotation. And now remember, Mac, when he played at Clemson, boundary cornerback, which we've talked about that's why the transition to NFL slot cornerback is such a steep transition, because a lot of these guys are generally outside boundary cornerbacks in college. They're studs there, and then it's like, hey, here you go. Hop into the slot and try to defend Adam Thielen two different directions, and you don't have a boundary as help. Best of luck to you. It's great. 2017 did have his growing pains his second year in the league. Noted. Also should be noted that he was the guy, if you remember back, not many people remember this, but Mac was the dude who gave up the 4th and 10 to Willie Snead to the Saints during the Minneapolis Miracle game. But the Minneapolis Miracle was needed because Mac Alexander gave up a 4th and 10 to Willie Snead to keep that drive alive to allow New Orleans to score, which... That would have been. I don't even know if Mackenzie Alexander would still be on this team if that was allowed to happen. Like, say Minneapolis Miracle doesn't happen for whatever reasons. Mac Alexander may have been ridden out of town, like on a train. And like, who travels by train anymore? I don't really know. But they would have punted Mac Alexander. It's certainly possible. But I'm glad that they didn't, because year 3, 2018 was his crescendo. Led the Vikings cornerbacks with a 78.1 PFF grade, 72.5 grade in coverage, as well as only allowed a quarterback rating of 85.6 when thrown at, allowed zero D'Angelo Russell touchdowns in coverage, as well as contributed 4 sacks. So it's like, oh, here we go. We have this brand new, maybe proto Antoine Winfield Jr. working on the slot. He can blitz, he can cover, he can tackle, he can do everything. Love me some Mac Alexander. So that was peak Mac. Now, the Vikings decided to let his contract ride this final year. I think part of it was on Mac because the numbers that they were likely offering him probably didn't sync up with how he valued himself, which, again, that's the player's priority. And I love when guys, I don't fault any player that takes the extension a year early, takes a little bit before market, because especially if you're a non-first round pick, just getting that big fat ass guaranteed money up front, that big ass signing bonus, and you're like, baby, yeah, you got to have that security, especially since in this league, you're always one play away. But decided to let it ride in 2019. And overall, it was a mixed bag, just like the rest of the defense. At times, he was the Vikings' best cornerback, but also that wasn't saying much. It's like, oh, hey, Mackenzie Alexander is performing better than Xavier and Waynes and Mike Hughes and Holton Hill when he's actually on the field. It's a little rough, but now he's set to open, set to hit open free agency. Spot Rack calculated his market value at $8.4 million per year, 3 years, $25.2 million deal estimated. But remember, that's the same number as Waynes. And if you're going to throw out the same number as Waynes as Mac, probably going to go with Mac at that spot, because here's the thing too. We thought that maybe Mackenzie would take a little bit less, not because of him wanting to, but just because of the economics of slot cornerback versus outside cornerbacks. But I forgot to factor something in. Is that Mac, like we said, was amazing boundary corner at Clemson. And if you're going to pay Mackenzie Alexander that much per season, I mean, chances are you're probably going to have him be the starter. So you're going to have him be starting on the outside in base and then kick him inside to slot when you go to sub package, go to nickel or dime. So that makes a lot of sense. So if a team pays him $8 million a year, you're going to want to get more usage on him than just out of passing downs. And it's sort of like how they used Terrence Newman early on in his career here with the Vikings. So 2015, 2016, he'd be starting in base opposite to Xavier Rhodes. Then when the Vikings win nickel, he would kick into the slot, and then Trey Waynes will be on the outside. And it worked out for a number of years. I think that's what they would do with Mac Alexander if they do retain him. So I think that if they do cut Xavier Rhodes, if they do let Trey Waynes walk and they re-sign Mac Alexander, I think he's going to be starting. And I think deservedly so. So instead of paying $6 million a year for a dedicated slot cornerback, which you've seen teams around the league do, you pay $8 million a year for a starter and a guy who's a technician in the slot. I'm okay with that. And like I mentioned, I think I'd rather pay Waynes 8.4, excuse me, I'd rather pay Mac 8.4, nailed it, rather than Waynes, because I think that Waynes, even though he has been very solid the last couple of years for the Vikings, I think he's tapped out on his potential. I think he is what he is. Also, he is 2 years older than Mac, and I think Mac, especially if given a chance to play a little bit more outside and play more downs, I think that his potential is a lot higher than what Trey Waynes is currently at. So you're sort of betting on the come with Mac, also a little bit younger, like I mentioned, and also positional versatility. I like that. And you're looking at the Vikings' potential cornerback room in 2020. So if you re-sign Mac, he's your starter, and also kicking in the slot and sub package. Then you got Hughes and Holton Hill. Then you probably have rookie TBD, either day 1, day 2 pick ideally. And then Chris Boyd, then Mark Fields, and Nate Metters. It's a tough spot. I mean, the Vikings cornerback room last year was like a big Achilles heel, and now you're just punting on some of the top names, which is still makes you feel uneasy. But again, Faith Zimmer is the DB whisperer. He threw Jerry Gray under the bus. Maybe that'll solve everything. I don't really know. But with Anthony Harris unlikely to be re-signed, I think Mac Alexander needs to be numero uno priority for the Vikings to re-sign and retain. But your thoughts, Mac, come back to the Vikings. Let us know in the comment section below. Also, subscribe for daily Vikings takes. If you want to support the work, pull us on the Venmo. But give us a follow on social media as well. But until next time, Skol, production value.